Learn to live the life of your dreams in Beyond Limits. It's our foundational class in the teachings of New Thought, Ancient Wisdom. It starts on March 7th. It's going to be 10 Tuesday evenings, and this is a transformational program. It's open to everyone. It's the intro class, so there are no prerequisites. During the time that we're in class, you'll learn the powerful practical tools for everyday miracles, for creative thinking, for meditation, for practical prayer and empowered intentions, and much, much more. You'll open yourself to an experience that's far greater than anything you have previously imagined. It is your opportunity to release the splendor that's locked within you. The program includes the Practical Prayer for Real Results workshop on Saturday afternoon, March 25th, which is an opportunity to dive deep into the techniques of practical prayer so that you can create a brand new experience in your life. Registration is open now. I look forward to seeing you in class. Well, it is time to keep our fingers crossed.
You know what I was thinking?
I am Bill Marchiony.
flashing
That's Carol Lawrence, and you're still popping in and out internet-wise. I think you're in a cul-de-sac on the information highway over there. So we were having some technical difficulties before we got online, and so Carol, I think, just went through a restart to see if we can. It's basically the internet equivalent of hitting the side of the TV and putting the aluminum foil on the rabbit ears. Not sure how well that's working. You're either pensive or frozen.
I think I must be frozen because I'm looking at doing this on my phone. Let's see if I can do it on the phone, which I never tried.
I don't know if StreamYard works on a phone, but give it a shot. See what happens.
Yeah, let's see.
We'll see. And of course, everybody who's watching on New Thought Media Network, you get to see how the sausage is made. As we grind up all of the spiritual and physical and emotional parts and see if we can turn it into a practical prayer podcast. So I think this is going to be episode 93 that we're recording today. So getting dangerously close to our centennial. And so we'll see what happens as far as that's concerned. And see if we're actually going to be able to get a broadcast today. So that's always a little bit exciting. And while Carol continues to try and work with the technology, I will point out that everything is metaphysical. So it all has meaning. So if there's something that's going on in our lives that's inexplicable or undesirable, it is undoubtedly because we need to learn something, or there's a new thing that's going on that we didn't previously understand.
Am I still
Or
going
something.
in and out?
You're still going in and out.
This is wild.
You sound like a musical effect on a cheap pop music production.
Yeah.
Not like Darth Vader, his voice is lower. But it's got all those digital artifacts and things that are going in there.
The other
So,
thing is,
and if there is somebody who's watching either live on New Thought Media Network now or watching the playback of the live stream, if you have never had the experience of Zoom or other internet meeting go sideways, then allow yourself to be refreshingly welcome to the club, because this sort of thing seems to happen from time to time. And of course, my story when one of these things comes along and it's not working is to recall very specific times that I, living on the East Coast, would get on an airplane to go to a business meeting either in Chicago or California and fly there and stay overnight and rent a car and go to the meeting and then have it turn out that the person wasn't going to be able to be there or there was an emergency, so it didn't get to happen. And as frustrating as technology failures are these days, at least it doesn't involve airplane tickets, hotels, or rental cars. And a fair amount less time that's been wasted in that. We seem to get really, really frustrated when we waste just a little bit of time these days.
Yeah, like what
And that's actually been coming up a lot. The picture is frozen, and the sound is coming through, Carol, at times that don't seem like it completely corresponds to what I was saying.
You know what? Well, this can you hear? Am I talking right? Can you hear me? You can hear me?
I can hear you talking now.
Okay. So
Yeah.
will this go okay if I just turn this camera off? Will that not be, that won't present a distraction, right? Will it?
I was going to agree with you right up until the audio stopped. So try turning the camera off, see what happens.
If it's still there?
So Carol is in the stream, audio only. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Okay, so I don't.
This would be just the silliest thing in the world. Yeah, strange things happen. Very strange things happen.
I was doing it on my phone and it just disappeared because I had to do it on Safari, which is not the one that my phone is used to.
Okay, I'm told that the StreamYard software that we use for New Thought Media Network does not work particularly well on a phone.
Okay.
Whatever. I don't know. I don't know. So we'll skip over that one.
So the iPad would be the same as the phone, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
From what I've been told, I've never tried it myself.
Okay. So that's not a good idea. All right. So I guess we're just going to see you this week, huh?
I guess.
Okay.
And Bob is suggesting that perhaps the problem is on my end, which of course would never be surprising for me. So we'll see. Let's see. What network am I on? Yeah, I'm supposedly on the good network. We did not try restarting Bill's computer. But I'm hearing Carol okay now, and we'll see if that does anything for us. Again, this is the pre-show for the Practical Prayer podcast, and we're going to get into the recording of the podcast itself. The notion of the attention economy has come up a lot for me in the last few days. In a meditation on Friday, and there's talking about it on the radio show that I was listening to. I was running errands this morning about how there are so many screens and so many channels that are all vying for our attention, that a lot of what we are paying for stuff with is our attention. And so maybe that's a topic, but I don't know. Obviously, since we're having technical difficulties, Carol, we didn't have a chance to talk about what we're going to talk about today. Do you want to surprise me, or do you want to tell me before we get into the recording?
I want to talk about where transcendentalism fits into New Thought.
Okay. I guess. I don't know if I know, but
the other thing is that I really got interested in what you just said.
Paying attention?
Yeah, paying attention. Listen, let's shift to that because that's been part of my thought too. It really has.
Okay.
All right. So what are we going to talk about?
All right. Well, the timing will be perfect. We'll talk about paying attention. Okay. And yeah, I've got a whole riff that's going on that. In fact, the talk that I'm doing on March 12th is going to be called Pay Attention or Paying Attention.
Okay.
So that'll probably go online about the same time that the podcast does.
Well, that's fine. Look at that.
Well, there we go. So obviously, by the time I get to March 12th, I'll have some practice talking about it. Or maybe I will have bored myself. Who knows?
I doubt it. You got so much.
All right. Well, let's do the podcast open.
Okay.
Go ahead. It's interesting because of what?
Because I was thinking about attention and focus and all of that direction. So let's see where it goes.
We'll see where it goes. I'll click the button. We'll play the beginning of the podcast here.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol Lawrence, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
Today we're going to talk about paying attention.
Yeah.
And the notion behind paying attention is that it used to be when we were kids in school, the teacher would say, pay attention! And that means that you should look over here and listen to what it is that they're saying. And that's still true. And we still sometimes ask people to pay attention or to give us their undivided attention. But we're now kind of in an attention economy where we get all this free stuff on our phone, our screen, and the television channels and everywhere, signs that are all offering us information or ideas or notions and requesting in exchange to have some of our attention. And so the idea of paying attention in an attention economy is that we're making an investment in whatever it is that we're paying attention to. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
And as you were saying that, I was thinking just that around that idea this week. And what I was thinking is that there is so much demand on our attention that we focus and get lost. Sometimes our trajectory gets lost in terms of what we really want, what we were doing. And so now I got to shift because there's a demand or a request for my attention over here. So you seems to be, that's why I think meditation is us to remain focused or refocus.
Well, yeah, meditation is an opportunity for us to turn away from all of the distracting influences and just pay attention to one thing at a time. And even when we're paying attention to something as simple and basic as our breathing. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. When we let everything else fall away, then we get to be present in this present moment. That's why we use our breathing, because we always breathe in the moment. You can't breathe for the future. You certainly can't breathe in the past. So in a lot of ways, that's very helpful.
It's helpful on that same thought, because I want to get back to what we were talking about or what you introduced in terms of making an investment. But the meditation that you spoke about, I used to resent when I was learning to meditate, that breathing time, because it felt like, come on, let's get it. Let's get to it. Let's get to it.
Right. Skip the breathing. Let's do the meditation.
Right. And whatever that was in my own mind, let's get to it. But your mind is never empty. So when you're breathing, it's just breathing on the least demanding thing, I think. This is it. I mean, this is as empty and as slow and clear as it gets. Now, that's explaining it in a very awkward way. However, it's a place to start. And when you begin to talk about or consider the things that you're talking about, the investment of ourselves in terms of what's being demanded of us, our attention, it's really good to be able to have a starting place, a start. Right. That's not all mixed up and congested.
Yeah, and there are guided meditations that we can do, lots and lots of them, different types of guided meditations, different patterns of breathing that we can do, different activities we can be involved in, physical meditative practices, so mindful meditation, taking a walk in the woods, is different than sitting there on your purple pillow just breathing. And it's all, the idea behind all of it is to clear out the distractions and just to be present in the moment. The number of times that I have been looking at my email and seen a message and there's something that I need to do, so I then switch over to my web browser so I can go and do that. I flip through all the tabs to get to the one where the thing that was in the email is. By the time I get there, I've been distracted by 17 other things. I can't for the life of me remember what it was.
Yes, absolutely.
And I thought that was age-based, and I think that it's much less age-based and much more multitasking-based.
Absolutely, exactly. I was just feeling it when you were saying that because I say of my advanced age. I call them senior moments, and I'll forget, something, and then I'll tell my daughter about what I forgot, and she said, "Ma, I do that all the time." So I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's not age-based, but how many things can you think of at one time? And what you said interests me because you said that these things are vying for our attention, and you use the term investment. So I would like to I'd like to hear where you're going with that.
Okay. The meditation that I did, what came up was the notion that if our attention were gold coins, and we had a little pot full of gold coins that were our attention, and every screen and every sign and every conversation had a coin slot, where would you be putting the coins? Where would you be investing your attention? If it were actually something of value that you had and you got to direct it over here or over there, where would you be paying your attention? And it's valuable. It's got to be valuable. That's why all of these companies are giving stuff away in exchange for being able to have our attention for a little while.
Two things come to mind. One, I was also thinking this week about organization. So, in terms of where you put your attention or put your coin on the board or whatever, however you want to describe it, it has to be within some organized structure in order for it to make sense or for the value to be experienced. If you're doing a whole lot of stuff, which most of us are doing, but then are we doing each thing well? Or,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
So yeah, that's what you mean by organization, is that there is some method to our madness and where it is that we're investing our attention. And ideally there is. Ideally we're being methodical about what we're going to spend time doing and how we're going to use the attention coins that we've got, or as I a lot of times talk about, the minutes that we have in a day, 1,440 minutes a day. What are we going to do with each one of those? And it's nice to think that we are methodical and organized about how we're going to be investing those. And sometimes I'm just like a bowl of popcorn, popping here and popping there and off in all sorts of different directions, and there is no meaningfulness to what's going on. For me personally, that gets exhausting.
Yes.
It gets exhausting to continue to spend all of my time shifting gears rather than just making progress in a particular lane. Other people love jumping back and forth.
I was one of those other people. Maybe that other person is still there, but more and more, I see the value of, and it's simply prioritizing, I think, and that's a word we don't like because it feels like if I put this at the top, then something else isn't important. But personally, I have found that I'm less and less able to give my best when I'm all over the place. What is it? Because that's one of the things I have to do before we come on every week is to decide what windows to close. So, and I'm amazed sometimes at how many windows I have to close and before I can shut down. And I'm thinking, Lawrence, what are you doing?
Where do these all come from? Why am I looking at all this stuff?
Well, I go to each one and they seem incredibly important, and I'm thinking,
Very
okay,
valuable.
and it's got the right name, so I'm not afraid to close it. But then if I close it, am I going to forget to go back to it? And maybe I need it, and that's why the thing is all, just so much. And today, with the technical difficulties we're having, I'm wondering whether that's a part of, or that's something saying to me that you've got your computer is tired.
Well, there's an answer for that. It's like upgrade the software and buy a new computer.
Yeah, but wait a minute though, because maybe I have to do that with myself. Maybe I'm doing too much in this, I'm not doing my best, or I'm moving a little bit slow. And so you can tell me later or now how to upgrade my own personal software. That would be cool. But there's this similarity, I think, in that. And it's difficult to do. It's difficult to adjust the focus or where your attention goes. Because you said something else you said, giving you all this free information. Nothing is free. It's a cost to it. What's
Free
the cost?
information.
Yeah, but what's the cost to me? Not in dollars and cents, but perhaps it's a cost of my intellectual pool being drained here, and I don't have what I need to put over here. So, I'm wondering if I'm the one that leads us off into other worlds sometimes when we're talking.
Well, thank God it's not just me doing that. So we get to share some of the credit or blame depending on how you want to assign that. And I spent a fair amount of time in my younger days working in the radio business. Mm-hmm. And radio salespeople have one of the toughest jobs because they're not selling a thing, they're selling air, and they're not even selling it, they're renting it for a little while. And the idea is that we can be interesting enough in the program that we put on the radio station that people will listen to the commercials and then buy the stuff that the advertisers are selling in exchange for being able to hear the records and the jokes that we've got during the rest of the program. And it's a wonderful concept. Newspapers worked the same way. The subscription fees didn't even pay for the cost of printing and delivering the paper. It was all the advertising that they wanted to get in front of people's faces. And there's an abstraction in that model, that what we're doing is we're getting the news, we're getting the information, we're getting the entertainment in exchange for the attention that we're putting into whatever the advertising message happens to be. And now the advertising messages come everywhere. They show up in all sorts of different spaces. Whenever there's a screen, there's going to be an ad on the screen or a message on the screen that somebody wanted to get there. You search for something on Google, and the first 3 things that come up are the ones that people paid to have come up when somebody puts in the keyword that you put in. Well, is that really why you type something into Google?
No. I type it in, and as you said, anywhere. So you can pick Google, YouTube,
I'm going to pick on
anything.
Google, yeah.
Okay, so now I don't want to see all that stuff. I don't. And I do get annoyed at times. But then I think it subliminally, it takes its place somewhere in the corner of your mind. So when you need a product, there it is. You saw it somewhere, and so you go back to it. So there's value. There's some value there if you want to look at it that way. What do you think?
Yeah, and there are so many streaming television services now that you have to pay for subscriptions to because they don't have advertising or don't have much advertising, that the question becomes, am I getting enough value out of my subscription to this to make it worth continuing to subscribe to pay for the content that I would get for free if it were advertising supported? And we're still working that out. We don't know.
Glad you mentioned that, because I do have a subscription. I'll just say a subscription. And all of a sudden, maybe a couple years ago, I got the subscription because there was supposed to be no ads. And then a couple of years ago, ads started popping up.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I would be interested to know how this affects millennials. When I was growing up, you'd have a commercial that would interrupt your television show. You either go make a sandwich or get some juice, and you run back for the commercial. A little bit different now is when a commercial pops up, you can skip the ad after a second or two.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I forget to skip the ad, skip the thing. And I'll sit there and I'm watching the whole commercial, a little ticked because the commercial was there, and I forgot that I could click skip the ad.
I'm sorry, Carol, that one's on you.
I know it is, because that's, but I was going to say, that's a throwback to when I was a kid. You had to watch the whole commercial. Now
Right.
I have to think, so that's a subconscious thing, though, I think. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, it is. It's
It's a subconscious thing.
yeah, I gotta turn it off. But I think there's some value in it. Fast forwarding to now, forgive me for going back to the 50s. But
That's fine. I was actually, the part that I was thinking about, we were watching old movies, and the one that was on while dozing off to sleep last night. Remember You've Got Mail? Nora Ephron movie from the 90s?
yeah.
Yeah, with Tom Hanks. And just listening to the sound of the dial-up modem connecting, and that somebody is anticipating when they're going to be told that they have mail. And, fast forward, 20, 30 years where you're told instantaneously without even taking your phone out of your pocket. It's making a binging noise because you've got mail.
Mm-hmm.
And no one would ever wait that long to get a message, a plain old text message. Are you kidding? We're getting videos from people in less time than it used to take to make those dial-up connections, because we're very impatient, because we want it all right now. And even to the point where we sometimes forget that we don't have to watch the commercials.
But that goes to your paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
How do I want my attention to be focused? How do I want to regulate my attention? And that's important. Like I keep my phone off, OFF, off,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want it always, it demands my attention. Somebody's always calling or texting. And I have a way of catching the ones that I want, but, I just don't give my life over to this culture that we live in, that I have to respond when somebody demands.
There you go. Well, now you've given me a way of juxtaposing our spiritual life with our technology life and choosing what we're going to pay attention to. Let's take a break and get into that when we return.
You can put practical prayer to work in your life, and Reverend Bill Marchiony can help. He is offering an online class that teaches you to create your own practical prayer in 5 weekly 1-hour sessions. The final hour brings your practical prayer together, anchored in live original music by a notable New Thought musician. Practical prayer is based on the most effective prayers found in religions and spiritual practices all over the world. Use it to deepen ever more fully into the truth of your spiritual nature. It's the core of a transformational spiritual practice that's simple, even if it's not always easy. Reverend Bill is also available for private spiritual counseling prayer sessions. Together, you'll lean into the challenges you've experienced in life and explore the transformation that's possible through practical prayer. You'll uncover old, hidden beliefs and uproot them to make way for the life of your dreams. Everything you need to know is on the website at b-v-light.com. That's b-v-light.com.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast.
You know what? I'm going to interrupt for just a second before we
Yes.
get back into that. Try turning your camera on one more time, and we'll see if that's going to work, because the audio got remarkably better. There we go.
Am I moving around?
You're moving around. The sound sounds good, but the video is definitely not synchronized. So, yep, perhaps we turn the camera back off again.
Okay.
Too bad, because you're fun to look at.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right, so you can bring us back in from the break one more time.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony. And
We're talking today about paying attention. And the spiritual framework for that is the law of attraction. What we are paying attention to is that which we are attracting into our lives. And it works as a practical prayer, where we set an intention and invite the infinite creative power that creates everything to create something new for us. And it works by worrying. If we focus on the stuff that we don't want, then we tend to encourage that to show up in our lives as well. And so the law is always working, whether it's giving us what we want or what we don't want. It's all, quote, good news, because that's the law working.
Extremely exciting for me when I discovered the law of attraction. That has always been working and always been there. But I'll just say, on the side of the street where I was raised, in in a traditional and religious whatever orientation, yeah, the law of attraction is not a discussion. But when I discovered it and I read it, it just makes so much sense. What we are focusing our attention on is what we're attracting. And when you talked about paying attention, oh my goodness, that means there's so much control that we have. Now, don't go to the control freak thing, okay? But there's so much control that we have in a positive way about concerning what we bring into our lives and the direction that we should focus our energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes incredible sense. But it takes a minute, it's like, I think that word you used earlier is an investment.
Mm-hmm. We're paying attention, we're investing our attention, and that investment is going to lead to the yield, the return on investment, or what's going to show up in our lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the courses that I teach is about financial management. And the one thing I say to people, look at your bank account on your phone every single morning when you get up. Every single morning. That'll do one or two things and let you know whether there's been some fraudulent activity, or it will tell you if you spent some money yesterday that you shouldn't have. So it focuses our attention and tells us the direction that we should go in, that is beneficial to our goals.
Yeah. Look at your bank balance every day. It'll either inspire you or scare the hell out of you.
Yeah, either way, it's good though.
It's nice to know. It is nice to know. Same idea about somebody who's paying attention to their body, weighing themselves every day. Is it necessary to weigh yourself every day? No. But if you're paying attention to that stuff, you might as well weigh yourself, because that's a metric.
Okay, so can we not go there?
You don't like to weigh yourself?
No, sir.
That's
but no, point well taken.
That's fine. Well, if you're going to ever weigh yourself, you should do it all the time. And if you're never going to, then come up with a different metric.
No, point well taken.
You get your regular clothes and then the clothes that have the stretchy waistbands. And we know that when we start being drawn to the ones with the stretchy waistbands, all right, time to do something different.
All of my girlfriends out there that are listening, they do not want to talk about this, okay? Right? Okay, put it in the chat. We don't want to talk about this, but you're right.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
So we'll talk about my experience with Noom some other time, and now we'll talk about The Secret, seeing as how we're flashing back to things that happened in the past. Remember when the movie The Secret came out, Rhonda Byrne?
Yes.
And, they're chasing around and they're talking about this secret and the law of attraction and how, this has been around forever and it's been hidden. And I'd been in New Thought for a while. I was perplexed. It's like, this isn't a secret. We talk about this every Sunday. That's what the classes are about. There's no secret here. But again, she hooked our attention and gained quite a bit of notoriety by making something that was well known into a secret.
Well, that's probably another discussion, but that is incredibly interesting as well, because you said you talk about that every Sunday. I was a pastor for 30 years.
You did not talk about that every Sunday.
Never talk about it, right?
Talk about it on no Sundays.
And I was going to say, even before I formally took the pulpit, I'm in front of the microphone and never spoke about it, ever.
Yep.
And I'm not even sure that it's a thing that people know about. It's there, of course. It's not something that was made up. It's always been there. But the language and the reality of it, the definition and how it works and all that. No, no.
Well, it's all a paraphrase of what's right there in Scripture, which as you believe, so it's done. That's the law of attraction.
Yes, but
Okay.
you gotta. Yeah, but you gotta.
You have to explain and understand and be willing to dive into it, though.
Yes, and see, I wonder because you know this stuff. I think you take for granted because you know it is second nature to you. And for me, it's like, okay, wait a minute now. We're going to discuss this. And then we're going to connect other scriptures to it. It's a wonderful thing to, I'm sure, to have come up in that theology. But for others, it's a stretch.
Yeah, and I didn't actually come up in that theology. I didn't discover New Thought until I was in my mid-30s. And what happened was I ran away from organized religion when I was 12. I had a little gift Bible for my confirmation, and I realized I didn't believe enough to be able to stand up and say, I believe this. So I ran away. I spent 20 years wandering through a spiritual desert with no framework for this stuff whatsoever. And I found New Thought through religious science and realized that the stuff that I believed, there were other people who believed it, and there were books, and there were songs, and there were groups, and there was a whole thing. And then I started going to taking classes and learning about this. And as I evolved and grew, I started to be a little, I was going to say willing. I wasn't willing. I was less unwilling to go look at some of the books and materials that I had put away previously, and got myself to the point where I could talk about God without being allergic to the word God. And then I could open up the Bible and read the Bible, and then eventually I got myself a red letter Bible, where everything that Jesus supposedly said is in red letters. And that was the eye-opener for me. Because when I read that, knowing what I now know about New Thought, it's like, he's speaking my language. He's saying exactly what I've been saying, and everybody else in New Thought has been saying. He's just Jesus.
Yes. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
It just makes it believable on a whole different level.
It does. I was talking to my husband the other night about the Bible and different interpretations of it and how I was indoctrinated and I had every Bible you could imagine. Oh my goodness. Every one of them. But the interpretations were the same. So I'm thinking I got all this stuff, and it's just like Schofield Reference Bible, the Ryrie, Thompson Chain. All of them were the same traditional interpretation, King James and all of that. Then you wander off and stumble into something else. And okay, is this okay to read? And I remember when I can tell you, I discovered the NIV in the 70s. And the pastor would say, now, I don't know if you could read this one. This is some of these out here. And now I'm looking back thinking, please, get them all, line them all up, and let's do a comparison. But then you stumble over into New Thought or a New Thought. It may be anywhere. And it's not all that different. It's I call it, and I'm probably going to get beat up by my traditionalist friends, but that's okay. I always say, the Bible gives you the headlines, and you got to go to New Thought for the bullet point.
There you go.
Get it's like a headlines, and then you got to read the story on the next section of the newspaper, and that's cool to do.
Yeah, my explanation of the Bible in a different context is that it's the Boy Scout handbook of life. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing. The Boy Scout handbook will give you a very tiny bit of information about a lot of different subjects, but there's a whole bunch of detail. You can get a doctorate on every section.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the fact that you read the Bible, even if you memorize the Bible, doesn't mean you have the whole story, because there's subtlety in subtext.
And there's some magic in the word thought and thinking. And that's another broadcast, I'm sure. But we have so many broadcasts in one. But yeah, how about thinking about this? Nothing is going to happen to you if you think about it in 2 or 3 different ways. And my favorite term for me is cross the street and look at it from this perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And then go across the street the other way and see what you see. Nothing's going to happen to you. If you don't like it, you're going to run back to the curve where you started.
Yep. I don't know if you've ever been to one of the studio tours for Universal Studios or Disney or one of the others. They have them in California and Florida. And you drive down the street and it's New York, and you drive down another street and it's the Wild West, and you drive down another street and it looks different. And you go behind the buildings and there's no buildings.
Right.
It just looks that way from the front. And on the one hand, it can be disillusioning that there's no substance behind that beautiful facade. On the other hand, if there's no substance behind the facade, wouldn't you rather know? Wouldn't it be good to know that?
That's a dangerous question.
Okay.
Because some people would like not to know.
Yep.
But once you know, you can't unknow.
That's true. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Let's take another break, and when we return, we will conclude with a prayer about investing our attention.
Get inspiration in an instant. God calls are the gentle and uplifting moment of truth to help you remember that the bright light of God's love is shining right now as you.
It's your God Call with Reverend Bill.
Start your 2-week free trial today, and you'll get a phone call 4 times a week from Reverend Bill with an uplifting half-minute message filled with insight, wisdom, story, and fun.
Let your light shine.
You can answer the call to listen to it live or let it go to voicemail so you can hear it later. After the free trial, your subscription is just $5.95 a month. The details are at godcall.org. God calls are disruptive, intentionally.
Whenever you write something, put on a gold star.
They take you away from your routine to remind you about the truth of who you really are. They come at random times between 8:15 a.m. and 6 p.m., so you won't be expecting them. And somehow, the message is exactly what you need to hear at the time.
Magic is loose in the world.
It's a moment of motivation in the middle of your day. Find out more and start your 2-week free trial now at godcall.org.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
We've been having a wonderful conversation about paying attention, and that being the attention that we invest in the things that we are wanting to bring into our lives. And it ties in with the law of attraction, and it ties in with the ability to create an experience according to our beliefs. So let's do a prayer about guidance and insight and next perfect steps as we are investing our attention. And the metaphor that we use is that if our attention were a bag of gold coins, and each time that we were attracted to pay some attention to a screen or to a book or to an article or to a pundit or a movie or whatever, that we had to put in one of those coins into the coin slot and give it away in exchange for whatever it is that was vying for our attention. How would we invest our attention? So the first thing to do is to turn away from all of the distractions in the world around us and turn to that one infinite intelligence, that one divine source, that one love that shares itself as all of its creation. It's God or nature, it's spirit, it's the infinite. It is that one creative power that has created and continues to create everything, everyone, everywhere. That one divine creative presence is sharing itself right now as each of us, individualizations of that one mind. And so each of us is fully endowed with the ability to think with that one mind, to use that divine intelligence to make good choices, to choose where to pay our attention, and to choose well. And so I know that as each one has the opportunity to glance or look or stare or dive in to a new opportunity, a new invitation to pay attention to something, that we're choosing well, that we are investing that valuable resource of our attention in a way that brings more good, more uplift, more joy, more harmony, more pleasantness into life. There is no need to be hooked into things that don't serve us, there is no need to squander our attention. There is no need to be ripped off by organizations, people who wish to grab our attention for their own purposes and are willing to take something valuable in exchange for something that's not nearly as valuable to us. So I know that each one is choosing well. Each one is divinely guided as to how best to invest that attention, when to pay attention and bring focus and clarity to a topic, to pursue something in depth, to achieve insight and wisdom and guidance and new awareness from that endeavor. And when to release the attention to all of those things around us and focus on simply being. Whether it's a meditative practice or an openness and an allowing, to not necessarily be distracted and attentive to stuff outside of ourselves all the time. That delicious balance point is available for each of us and for all of us. And I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the wonderful way this is coming about. I'm grateful for the new peace of mind and harmony that we're each experiencing as we achieve that new balance point, as we experience that sweet perfection of investing our attention and reaping the rewards in a way that brings uplift and good and joy and harmony to us, to those around us, and to our world. And so with gratitude for this good, I speak this word and I release it into that creative law, the one that always says yes. And I know without any question that it's once again saying yes. This good is underway now. So I let it be. And so it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com.
be-the-light.com.
Where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
And that is the Practical Prayer Podcast for Monday, the 27th of February. Thanks to those of you on New Thought Media Network who have watched along with one camera in operation and the other one shut down because of internet glitches. So, and thank you, Carol, for playing along.
I'm still here.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I was thinking about while we were talking, and it didn't make it into the conversation, because you live near the beach.
Yes.
Sometime, if you, and I'm sure you've done this, but you can go down to the beach, and on the boardwalk you will find a group of teenagers, and they'll be hanging around in a group with their friends, standing in this gorgeous spot in nature with the Atlantic Ocean right next to them, and they'll be doing what? Staring at their phones.
Yes. Yes and yes.
What is up with that?
Well, okay, so the ocean, to me, the background that you describe is just peaceful simplicity. It's just tranquility, which takes a back seat to life now. Because there's so much to do and think and respond to. When do we appreciate the quiet? I think in Psalms, it tells us, be still and know that I am God. I mean, you got to be still at some point to
That's right.
connect with God. And I'm looking at like the description that you gave. I just see it all the time. And you just want to say, just calm down for a second.
Yeah. Look, put the phone down, look over there. I mean, my wife and I, to celebrate our anniversary, went down to the shore in Delaware, in Dewey Beach, and specifically got a room that looks right out on the beach and the ocean. And I didn't go down there so that I could be on the internet.
Yes.
I mean, I had the internet with me, but I spent a fair amount of time just sitting there looking at the waves, looking at the birds and looking at the people walking their dogs in the sand, and just being present as all of that stuff unfolded, and being grateful that I was sitting inside because it was still February.
It's amazing what you will see when you're calm and quiet and in that space of peace. And just along that line, a couple of years ago, we were there sitting on the boardwalk, and there was a crow that came, and most people think, oh, crow, and they, cringe. And I looked at this thing, and it was beautiful. It's not black, actually. It's just this very deep, deep, dark indigo. Mm-hmm. And I thought, unless you're still and really paying attention, I would have missed that. So I don't think that that's a very, nobody's anxious to go look at crows, but it just, to me, it said, look at the things that you miss when you don't pay attention.
Well, yeah. It's not, let's go find a crow to look at. It's like, if there's a crow there, let's spend a moment looking.
Yes.
Let's see what's actually going on with that. Yeah, I mean, it's getting to the time of year when the birds are coming back. So there's a lot of songs that haven't been here for a few months. And some of them I recognize, but not nearly all of them. It's like, I could probably figure that out. I could probably pay a little bit of attention and understand what bird is singing to me. Because maybe it's singing to me.
Exactly. And you think, what am I supposed to see? What was I supposed to see by looking at this crow? And it may not be, well, I saw the crow and it was beautiful, but maybe there are other things that I'm missing by not being still and paying attention. Mm-hmm. And, stripping away what I've been told, those preconceived notions about things, and look at it for what it is. What do I recognize and what's speaking back to me? And I think you're only going to catch that if you're paying attention.
I agree. And let me mix my own metaphors here, because one of them is the gold coins that we invest in whatever it is that's looking for our attention, and the other is the 1,440 minutes that we have every day. If we start with the assumption that we've got, pick a number, 1,440 of those gold coins, and we're going to be spending one every minute, what are we going to spend them on? What am I going to spend it on today? What did I spend it on yesterday? What are the possibilities for me tomorrow?
And the big deal is you got a choice. You get to choose.
Always have a choice. And there's no rollover minutes. You can't just hoard them for tomorrow.
No rollover minutes.
No rollover. I love the concept of rollover minutes, which I never got, but I like. All right. That brings us to a wrap of the Practical Prayer Podcast post-show. You've been watching the one-eyed version with just a single camera here.
I'm still here.
You are still here. You are here. I'm seeing you here, even though I'm not seeing you over there. And thank you to everybody on New Thought Media Network for being here. And we will see you 2 cameras, full operation, stereo, next Monday.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome Om Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks to Hefferlin Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Ajit, thank you for your very generous donation. And a super special thank you to Dr. Tracy Brown, RSCP. Thanks for being a super donor. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.